there is a significant delay. So there is a significant delay. We got that going for us. There is a significant delay. We got that going for us. There is a significant delay. And I'm early. I'm 5 minutes early. So just to get people up in this business. Just to get people up in this business. All right, delay is about 5 to 10 seconds. So if you guys are trying to get me to respond to you immediately in the live chat, do keep in mind that there might be some weird timing issues. But yeah. I'll just sit here until until we start, or people start talking or something. You pop open my own stream, see what happens. You want my microphone sound higher? Let's see if I can figure that out. All right, let's check the echo now. Nope, there's still an echo. All right, hold on. Everyone, calm down. Everyone, calm down for a second. Everyone, calm down. Let me see. Yeah, no, there's a big echo. Where is that? All right, I found it. I think I figured it out. I think I got it. I do, just in case Merb shows up. I'll be ready for him this time. I don't think he'll have... Well, he might have an issue with this. Is my video freezing for you guys? Let me see. If I get closer to my microphone. Maybe I'll just talk loudly. See if that works. How's my audio now? Okay. It looks like the video is getting better. I'm just moving around to see what the delay is, because there's a pretty big delay. Yeah. Well, we'll have to deal with it. Guys, like my green screen? My whole setup here? My camera's reversed, so I'm going to be pointing in the wrong direction. Yeah, I've been setting this up to see if I can make it look a little fancier than last time. 'Cause last time, I was using a laptop webcam, which was absolutely terrible. As I'm sure those of you who have seen it know. And it was a much longer stream than I expected. So for those of you who sat through it all after the fact, well done you. I wouldn't expect anyone to. I try to keep my videos pretty short, the ones that I actually upload. Because I know no one cares to have an hour-long video. I watch the Sovereign Citizen videos so I can refute them and put out information on them. And they're so long, it's so much nonsense, and I don't want to be that guy. So, if you sat down and watched it after it had been finished, when I couldn't interact with you, I appreciate it. And thanks for doing that. Let me see what you guys are saying. Do I hate cops? For the most part, no. I don't hate uh, the. I don't hate the idea of police departments and police. And in fact, I was a police officer, so generally, no. There are police officers that I do not like. There are individuals that I do not like. However, overall, I do support the police. What's up, Sean? Merb didn't ruin me. I disputed most of what he said and agreed with him. Agreed with him on a few things. What he's not telling you is the complicated nature of some of these things. He's taking a stance other than my stance. However, we're not going to discuss that this much during the channel, but since we're just starting out, I'm waiting for people to show up. I will tell you that currently the law can be enforced. Now, whether or not you can be convicted of it, that's what Merb and I are having the most heated debate about, is can a conviction happen? Now, I personally think that it's a possibility. He does not think it's a possibility. Currently, at this time, police will have qualified immunity if they enforce that law. So, yes, it can be enforced in the sense that you can be detained or arrested. As far as conviction goes, that's very much up in the air. But all right, audio is good. I like it. I'm shouting at my screen right now. Okay, I'm gonna wait just a little bit longer. Ask me questions if you want to about related or unrelated things, and then I'm gonna try some fancy maneuvers with my software so that I can pretend to be a professional at this. I promise you, I'm not. Anything else? Any other comments? Oh, how's it going, King 9? What? Are those fists? Why am I not a law enforcement officer anymore? Well, I was a police officer in the military. I was military police, and you might think, well, military police only applies to the military, right? Not really. We also had civilians on base, so not only did we enforce the UCMJ, which is military law, but we also enforce federal law because it's a federal military installation, and we generally enforce that on the civilians because the soldiers are subject to their own set of laws. King 9 out. Anyway, because it's federal property, federal laws are enforced, but if there's not a federal law and there was a state law that applies to a situation, there's a thing called the Assimilated Crimes Act, which is basically like, look, if they're on federal property, but they are committing an offense that would fall under state law, you can charge them with that state law. So, as military police, I enforce state, federal, and military law. So anyone who tells you military police have nothing to do with civilians, that's not true. However, they are limited to the territorial jurisdiction of the military base. Now, keep in mind, if you've seen any of my videos about filming a military installation, you'll know that the military property often extends past the fence line. The fence line only marks the restricted part of a military base or post or any other term that's used for that. So, yes, I enforce law outside of the fence line, but it was on DOD property. That'd be Department of Defense property. All right, guys, if we could stop encouraging each other to shoot yourself, that would be appreciated. I'm going to start muting people. All right. McDonald's or Burger King? That depends on the food. Depends on how I'm feeling. I don't usually eat at either. However, I do enjoy me some chicken fries. I think based on that, I'm going to have to go Burger King. Although McDonald's, I think, might have better burgers. But chicken fries are good. I don't even like them that much, actually. I just like the idea of them. Maybe it's just dipping them in the sauce. It's weird. It's a weird weird answer to give. How many people are watching? We got 8. Are we feeling like starting this thing? I feel like we could start this thing. Oh, favorite fast food restaurant. I'm going to answer that. I do Popeyes, maybe, for chicken. Popeyes for chicken, definitely. Although, is pretty difficult once it's been suggested to talk me out of Taco Bell. Just, I don't know what it is. It's just so simple. I should do a panel show. I should. We should get a bunch of people in here. I'm trying to. I know a guy who is a sovereign citizen. I know him in real life. He does some repairs on our house every once in a while. Nice guy. Really good at what he does. But he has some views, and I'm not going to say he's wrong. He has some views that I disagree with as far as your ability to drive without a driver's license, your ability to not pay taxes, all the sovereign citizen things. He thinks the earth is flat. His girlfriend is an anti-vaxxer. And regardless of how you feel about those things, those aren't things that I agree with. I think the earth is round. I think vaccines work. And I think that there isn't some sort of weird legal loophole that allows you to not pay taxes and get away with it, or drive without a license, or do all sorts of things. And I've made a couple videos on that. I have a whole bunch more planned. I'm about to start editing a video on whether or not your birthday is hearsay. You'll sometimes see sovereign citizens will say, well, officer, I can't tell you what my birthday is because that's hearsay. Because, I was present for my birth, but I don't remember it. Therefore, I can't be a source of that information. And if I told you, only because other people have told it to me, that would be hearsay in a court of law, so it wouldn't apply, which is really, really weird. It's I break it apart and say, no, actually, here's why that's wrong. Spoiler alert. But it's a short video. It's going to be like 3 minutes, I'm sure. So it doesn't take much to dispute that. I am trying to get our schedules to match so that I can interview him and have a conversation about what he believes and go from there and see what happens. It's going to be very unscripted. Those of you who have been looking into my comment section, which is, it's fun. My comment section is fun. There's a lot of craziness in there. I love going through my comment section and talking to people. There's a lot of crazy in there. I'm sure none of you are the crazy people in the comment section, but there are some. And so you'll know that I script my videos. Obviously, like in some of my videos, it's very clear that I'm reading a script behind the camera. So doing it unscripted like this, right? I do have a little bit of script. There's some stuff I'm going to be reading off of. But doing it completely unscripted is going to be pretty interesting, because who knows? How is my sound? Some people are saying they can hear me. Some people are saying they can't hear me. Oh, Ian McGuire. I looked into him last week. I think his final hearing might be sometime in January. I think they're going to do the sentencing hearing, if I remember seeing that correctly. It's scheduled for January. I could be wrong. I think he's going to be found guilty for quite a few things. I'm sure they're going to offer him some sort of plea deal, and it's not going to be, the maximum amount, although he does have quite a bit of a history, so they might not offer him a deal at all and say, well, sorry, bud, you had your chances. Sound is fine. How's it going, Humberto? Were you in my last stream? That sounds familiar. I'm sure many of you are. I recognize most of you. Yeah, King Knight. Oh, King Knight, we had a thing planned, and I couldn't get my schedule to work. Yeah, Google, I'm doing this through a couple pieces of software, so it's entirely possible it might be some issues streaming it to the software from my camera, because I'm using a real camera now. This is the one I use to record, and I got some hardware that allows me to plug it into my computer directly and do this. So there are going to be some issues because my computer's getting a little old. She's still a beast, but definitely needs a new motherboard. So the camera might actually cut out during this because the motherboard doesn't like recognizing the USB very well. Yeah, no, King 9, yes. I do every once in a while. My schedule right now, because it's the holiday season, is pretty crazy, which is why I haven't been able to put out much or schedule. Windows. I love Windows XP. Don't you be hating on Windows XP. I love Windows XP. You could do so much with it. It was so customizable if you knew what you're doing. I wouldn't go back. I'm sure I'm remembering it very fondly, and compared to what it actually was. I would not go back. All right, Ian McGuire was on both federal and non-federal charges. I'm sure he was. He was definitely felony and non-felony. I don't know about federal. I'm sure it was federal because he violated. Well, the injunction. I don't know about federal versus non-federal in his case. I know that he had at least one felony, and a couple of them were decided like, it's misdemeanors. But yes, okay, I do remember you, Humberto. Let me see. Yeah, if you see my video on him, you know how I really feel. He made some mistakes, and he didn't think he made mistakes, and that's also a concern. That he thought that his behavior was appropriate and not illegal. Of course, everyone else involved in the situation thinks it was. I don't think a jury will play very nicely with him. Depends on the jury, though. That's the beautiful thing about juries. The guns, he wasn't supposed to have the guns. Oh, the mail incident. That's right, because he was shipping things in the mail he wasn't supposed to. That, I believe, is federal. I had forgotten all about that. That was before I made the video. He had a lot of pending stuff when he was arrested. Yes, I believe the mail was federal. I didn't look into that very much because it wasn't directly related to what I was looking into. I only looked into the arrest itself, which was because of witness tampering, because he was harassing a witness of a crime on a crime scene. There were 3 of them, and he was basically going all out. And during that, he also was obstructing justice, and I remember they threatened him with trespassing. Completely unrelated to the video, the live stream I'm going to do, but now that you're talking about it, because I have been looking into this recently, they got a warrant to arrest him, I believe, for the witness tampering. They found a whole bunch of guns in his house, and that was illegal because he had a stalking injunction against him because he kept following this woman around and filming her. That's why those 3 things were related. Those are the things I discussed in the video. I did not look very much in depth. I know of the mail incident. I don't remember the details because that's not part of the thing I did a lot of research on. Battlefield. I never played Battlefield Vietnam. I was a Bad Company 2 kind of a guy. Yes. Yeah, so that was why the FBI got involved, I think, was the mail thing. Because I think they were also serving a warrant at the same time. They definitely got involved once the guns came into play. I remember the FBI was at his house for that. I'd have to look into it again. It's been a while since I've checked that out. But I haven't reached out to Furry Potato. I would love to have a talk with Furry Potato because a lot of people think that I don't like Furry Potato. And don't get me wrong, I haven't seen all of her videos. And I'm going to use her. Some of you disagree with that. Furry is transgender, male to female. But if Furry wants to be referred to as her, it doesn't really hurt me or affect me at all. So I'm just going to go with it. I'll respect that choice. I don't dislike Furry Potato. I haven't seen all the videos, and it's been brought to my attention that there are some things that she has done that I probably wouldn't appreciate, and I don't doubt that. There are a few auditors that have a perfect squeaky clean record when it comes to knowing everything they're talking about. But what I like about Furry Potato is that she has been in some incidences that are not her fault, where she was treated very poorly. She was shot. I've looked into that quite a bit. I am amazed that the guy who shot her wasn't charged. He might have been, when I looked into it, he wasn't charged. That may have changed. Yes, Humberto, you wrote to me about that. That's where that started. Yeah, she was shot. There's an incident where there was some filming going on in California, and she was like hanging out on the sidewalk, and she was assaulted. She was absolutely the victim in that case. I personally believe, based on what I saw in the video. I'm not saying there wouldn't be evidence to dispute that. I just haven't seen any. And there's a police officer there that just did nothing about it. And that was a concern. There are some incidences where the police did not... In California, I think it was Los Angeles, the police are trained. They have a specific rules on how they deal with transgender persons. the questions they can or cannot ask, and they didn't follow those rules at all. So there are things that she has brought attention to, which I think is very important for auditors to do, is to draw attention to things that are issues. I would love to have a talk with her on a live stream, because most of these auditors I don't have anything against. Auditing America, I just did a video on him. I have another one planned. I don't really care for. Doesn't really reveal much as far as the bad stuff goes, and if he does, or his crew does, it gets buried in a lot of stuff that isn't, there aren't examples of police doing things wrong. It's just him not knowing the law. Jesus Padilla goes by the name Mexican Padilla. Do not like him. Made a video, one of my earlier videos was on him. He's got gang tattoos now. One of them isn't technically a gang tattoo. The other one, he has a cross. I believe that usually is definitely affiliated with the gang. He has 3 dots on one eye, which isn't necessarily gang related, but many gangs carry it. It's basically saying, like, look, I live a crazy lifestyle. And the other one, if I remember correctly, is usually affiliated with the gang. So combining those two is a little questionable. Not saying he shouldn't or can't do it. I just personally would not make those decisions. There's one guy in Florida, something Rob. I think he deleted his channel, which is a shame, because I was gonna make some real good videos on him. There were some really terrible decisions he made. But yes, you sent me. Humberto has sent me a video where News Now Houston. He was filming outside of, I want to say it was a courthouse or something, right? And do I have a sweet spot for furry? I don't know enough about furry to have a sweet spot, but I just want people to know that although I did make 2 videos on her for a single incident, they weren't designed to be like she did something wrong. It was more designed to say she didn't do anything wrong, but neither did the police based on the circumstances. Really, the fault lies in with the fire department official that threw out of the building, and then what I would assume was false testimony against her on scene. It was a weird, complicated situation, but I believe the police technically would have had qualified immunity, and I don't think Furry would get a charge based on that. Now, as far as teardrops, yes, teardrops are definitely, I've murdered a dude. He does not, as far as I know, have a teardrop. That would be Mexican Padilla that we're talking about. But yes, Humberto sent me a video of News Now Houston filming outside of a federal building, and what was it? It was U.S. Marshals, I think. They came outside and they basically pushed him off the sidewalk physically. He is allowed to film. It definitely appeared to be a public sidewalk. It was next to a road, a public road. They should not have been able to. I don't think they would have the legal authority to push him. There are times that there is a legal authority to physically push someone back. They are very specific, though. They are limited. It didn't appear to be that case. And even a police officer who was there was like, "You guys can't do that." So, Finbar. It was mostly an agree to disagree. Yeah, King9, if you send them my way, sergeantbluebacon@gmail.com, I'll check them out. Finbar, as far as Merv goes, I don't really think there's much merit in having more arguments with him. If he wants to he's made a lot of videos about me now, discussing our argument. Mostly what he's coming down to, it appears, and he disagrees with me about my interpretation of what he's trying to argue, although I don't really know how. It's probably because I haven't really watched all of his videos, so I might be misrepresenting him. But he appears to be saying, look, this can't be enforced. This law can't be enforced because if it was, it would never result in a conviction for these reasons. But it can be enforced, is what I'm saying, because there's nothing to actually say that there's no case law. There's nothing to indicate that 18 U.S.C. 795 would not apply to someone on public property. Now, police aren't expected to act like lawyers. They're supposed to read the law as written and enforce it that way. There are some cases where they are expected to know specific case law, a really important case law, but that's very limited. And I'm not saying police are expected to be dumb. It's just being a lawyer is a lot of work, and congratulations to Merv for being one. I was never a lawyer. I do have quite a bit of training outside of your standard police stuff. I was 2 different types of investigator, and I did receive training on interpretation of case law and the judicial process more than the average police officer would have. I'm not saying that I know more about that than he does, but what I'm saying is, as a police officer, I would have qualified immunity, which means that I wouldn't get in trouble for enforcing 18 U.S.C. 795 on someone who's filming a restricted military installation. What he's saying is that would never result in a conviction, so that isn't possible, but that's his own interpretation of law. That's not the interpretation that we found in courtroom case law, although the only case law we really have is civil court. So it's a super complicated topic, and I could argue this for actual hours, but I'd rather, instead of confusing a bunch of people, I'd rather say, look, you could absolutely get in trouble for this. Although you might not end up in jail or paying a fine or have a criminal record because of it, it would definitely be very much an inconvenience. So I'd rather try to make sure you guys aren't inconvenienced than say, no, go for it, see what happens. No, it's super complicated. I do want to say, before we get, because I'm going to start the actual topic itself, Finbar, you're saying his argument is that the installation is inside the base, and 18 U.S.C. 795 applies to filming the installation. Now, that argument actually supports my argument, because installation, there are a lot of definitions on what an installation is, what a base is, what a military compound is, and not all of them are exactly the same. There are a lot of different definitions found in different various military documents, as well as different dictionaries. But the closest that argument comes is installation just means the buildings inside of a base. The base being the DoD property, the installation being the buildings on it. Now, for them to not be able to be filmed, they have to be on restricted property, meaning that the stuff inside the fence line. So if you're filming the buildings inside of the fence line of a military base, that is illegal per 18 U.S.C. 795. So I don't really know why he'd be arguing that, because that seems very clear. So like if you're filming inside the fence line, but you're just filming some grass, probably not illegal. But if you point your camera up at the buildings, good luck, right? Might get dropped. Charges get dropped a lot. Yeah, some people are having trouble hearing me. Some people aren't. I don't know. I don't know what that issue is. I'll move over my mic a little closer. It is a very sensitive mic, so it should pick me up. Area 50. So Area 51, yes, is restricted installation, but it's not in use anymore. It still exists. It's still owned by the DoD. But you're not. There's nothing happening there anymore, from what I understand. Now, this comes from information available to the public. I don't have access to any special information about Area 51. Don't think because I'm a soldier, or I was a soldier. I'm still a soldier, National Guard, not active duty. Don't think that I have some special access to classified information, because I don't. They can kick you up. Like, the land outside of Area 51 is DoD property for quite a ways. However, they don't really care anymore. They've moved whatever facilities they used to test planes. It's not there anymore. So I don't think it matters. As far as the enforcement 18 U.S.C. 795, if the commander of the base allows filming, it's not illegal. So I assume that's the situation there. Yes, Area 51 does use 18 U.S.C. 795 as warning. Many installations do. If you're outside of the base, you'll see 18 U.S.C. 795 referenced. If you're inside of the base, you'll see the Internal Security Act of 1950 or 1954, which was just additional stuff added to the 1951, and that's enforced under 50 U.S.C. 797. So this idea that 18 U.S.C. 795 only applies if you're inside of an installation or base, which is what some people, I believe, including MERB, have argued. I don't know if MERB is still arguing that. It doesn't really make sense, because if 18 U.S.C. 795 only applied inside of a base, why wouldn't they reference it inside of the base as opposed to using the Internal Security Act of 1950, right? Doesn't really make sense. Oh, yeah, the property line. So, although it's not necessary to mark the property line, it's a very good legal defense. In the Army regulations, there are certain things like
mark this. Otherwise, they're going to be able to argue that they had no idea, right? I haven't seen that video, Humberto, but if there's no reasonable way to understand that you are trespassing, they basically can't charge you with trespassing until after they've told you to leave and you failed to do so. So if they say, "Hey, you're on military property, leave," and you leave, you can't be charged with trespassing. Now, if they say, "Leave, you're on military property," and you don't, that's a different story. I don't know the situation in that one. There's one more thing that someone said. That you said, yeah, James Freeman was camping with his family and they wanted to arrest him. He got kicked out. I have not seen that one. I have seen the James Freeman one where he got arrested for filming military installation. I do understand that those charges were dismissed without prejudice. Understand that dismissed without prejudice doesn't mean he won. It means that the charges can be refiled at a later date, but the government has basically said, like, look, we're no longer interested in pursuing it. It took him 1.5 years to get to that point, though. That's a long, long fight. I'm sure it was very expensive for him. Part of the problem is that the prosecutors submitted some bad exhibits. They said that he was on DoD property, which he appears to have been for sure. However, the document they submitted to show where the property line was, they got it wrong. They just threw something together and went, yeah, that'll work, and then it turns out that he was on the not DoD side of the line that they drew, even though the line that they drew was wrong, which made them look incompetent. I'm not going to say that they weren't or that they were, because I don't know them. I haven't seen the entire case, but it definitely put them at a pretty significant disadvantage. And it appears to have been more of a war of attrition than a standard court procedures, where they just fought it until the government wasn't willing to continue to pursue it. Because it is very expensive to pursue these charges. People say, well, they have money, they get taxes, they have funding. Yes, it's expensive for the government to file charges against someone and go through a lengthy court procedure. Most people don't realize that, which is fun. But if we don't, the arresting officer was fired for James Freeman? Is that what you're saying, Popcorn? What was the reason for that? That wasn't because he enforced 18 U.S.C. 795. I remember seeing something about that, I think. Oh, he was fired for something else. That's right. Because he had... God, I don't remember. That was a while ago that I looked into that. That's good to know. I'll check that out. Anyway, we should probably... yes, he was fired for something else, and that discredited the investigation and the proceedings. Plus the fact that prosecutors got stuff wrong, which is a shame because no one... Well, maybe there are people, but I really want to know how 18 U.S.C. 795 is going to be dealt with in court. It's never been dealt with strongly to the point that I want it to be in criminal court. And either way, I'd just be happy to know, because I get to stop arguing it if I'm proven wrong. I'll send a can of bacon to Merb when that happens. I've already told him that. It would just be regular bacon, not blue bacon. And then if I'm right, I get to do a little dance about it. Be good. Yeah, Rogue Nation. God, I need to look more into Rogue Nation. And then anyway, we should probably start with the stream was supposed to be. Shouldn't we? You guys been distracting me. It's so easy to get me going. Let me see. So, MRE. Oh, that sounds terrible. MRE bacon. Is this what I want? Bam! Look at that. How fancy is that? Oh, this is my microphone right there. Shh, look. So this is the video I'm going to be using. Someone sent me a video that they had taken, but it appears to maybe have been after the arrest. I'm not sure. It was good. It's a great video. I'm sorry I'm not going to be using it. This one's just shorter and more concise. This will be easier to talk through. Now, this video does not belong to me. Let me look at the video. It belongs to Justin Polium. I think he's using someone else's, the News Now videos. I'm not really sure. But understand that I'm using this under fair use because I am making a commentary on it. We're going to be watching. I'm going to be commenting on it. It's going to be staying right there. So, in case anyone tries to file a claim against me because I'm not using my own video, good luck, because I have a very good legal defense. So, we're going to watch it. There might be a little bit of an echo. There probably is going to be a little bit of echo. I'm sorry about that. I couldn't get that fixed. But I'm going to be stopping it, making a few comments, and then we're going to discuss it in depth.
Again, you're trying to make us out to be the bad guys in your little videos.
On Thursday, protesters from across the country were in Rockwall, Texas, speaking out against what they say is malicious prosecution for unpopular speech. This is what happened when they were having fun riding with children's sidewalk chalk on the public sidewalk at the Rockwall County.
I'm going to stop it right there. They might have had fun doing it, but that doesn't mean what they're doing isn't a criminal activity. I'll discuss what the criminal activity is in just a moment.
Courthouse.
All right. Who's throwing the dollar in the instant chat? Come on, super chat. Come on, let's see some super chat money. Come on, look at this. Where are those dollar bills in the super chat?
Right?
Here we go.
To exercise some tyranny.
All right, here comes the police.
I died for happiness and Jewish freedom.
Shocking. It's criminal mischief.
Chalking is criminal mischief. That's important. Okay? Just keep that in mind. We'll discuss that in a bit.
Ma'am, turn around, you're under arrest. Sir, turn around, you're under arrest.
They've definitely been watching this from inside, saying, all right, who was involved? That person, that person, that person, that person. Let's go out, make some arrests. So there was a question I saw on this video. I've been through the comments quite a bit of it. You'll see me being sassy in there if you go and check it out. Again, it's, I think, Justin Pulliam, so if you check out his stuff, you'll be able to find it. Some of the people that were arrested were not at the time drawing with chalk. However, I'm sure the police witnessed them doing it and made a mental note saying, all right, we're going to grab this person and that person and that person. Just in case that question comes up about, well, why did they arrest the person with the camera who wasn't chalking? Because they had chalked earlier. Moving on.
CPR. Oh my god. Give me after this. I gotta do CPR.
No justice! No peace! Fuck the police! You guys feel good about fucking violating the First Amendment to the Constitution?
Sorry about the language.
We got Sergeant C. Mitchell! What's your name? See ya!
I mean, obviously, you know, we have F the police right here, and I try to not use strong language so that audiences of all ages, obviously, this isn't necessarily appropriate content for children, but I like to keep it relatively PG. Now, this channel isn't monetized, so I'm not doing it for money purposes or anything like that. Just understand.
Can I take her stuff, please, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Hey, fuck you. Yep.
Yes, sir, I do. That's
Okay. Sergeant Hill is leading the bunch there, and they're being a little not being very gentle with some of the folks.
You will avoid police
All right, so that's the
interaction.
arrest. Now, later they talk to the police, I believe, and the police give some information. Justin doesn't like the information that's being given. He says they're giving bad information. I would disagree. We're going to go into it.
You just, like, you know, obey the law, and, like, you know, and do what you're asked to do.
In case you have any questions or
Information
issues
from
about what
Rockwall,
you've seen,
Don't spam them. That can be considered cyber stalking in some states or cyber harassment in other states. Don't. I mean, it's there if you need it. I'm not putting it up there. He's putting it up there. If you have further questions about this, there you go. But please, I recommend not spamming it because you can actually face criminal charges for that.
I've provided numbers for the Rockwall County officials who may be able to assist you. To watch the entire video about what happened at the courthouse on Thursday, subscribe to News Now Community. There's a link to the full video in the description below. If you'd like to get involved, or if you'd like to see what you can do to help, you can email me at justinpulliam@gmail.com. This is what the Rockwall police had to say about how the police educate individuals about the law.
So if you go from another state and you break a law, they don't have to educate you on all the laws of that state before you break a law and you get in trouble.
True.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It's upon you to know the laws, right?
It's also
Right.
true.
Okay. Now we're here to help you and educate you about those things.
Okay,
But here's the deal. Once you've broken the law, basically what's going to happen is enforcement of the law is going to take place, and then you're going to become educated, right?
All right, I'm going to tell you guys about that. When I was a police officer, I tried very hard to educate people about the law. When I did traffic stops, I preferred to have a conversation rather than write a ticket, and part of that is because our tickets were so much paperwork. But I'd rather be like, look, this is a minor thing. I'm looking for bigger crimes by pulling you over. But understand that this is why your license plate has to be, this far off the ground or not above this height, or your lights have to work in this way. There were times I made arrests where I thought that the circumstances were a little suspicious. For example, that someone might be giving a false statement. In those cases, I explained what the person's legal defense, what a good thing to talk to an attorney about would be. I am all for educating. Obviously, I'm still doing it, even though I'm not law enforcement anymore. I think it's very important to help keep people safe. Because if you know the law, it's going to help you not break it if your intent is to not break the law. Now, obviously, if your intent is to go break the law, what am I going to do, right? But it helps. It helps to know. And there's a lot of misinformation that's going around, and I'd like to clarify that. So this officer's saying, like, look, you can educate yourself before you go and do these things. But it's your responsibility to do that. If you're driving and commit a traffic offense, there are traffic offenses that I, as a former law enforcement, do not know, and I would be charged with. But I'm responsible for knowing what those offenses are. Now, am I going to go and read through the entire traffic code? Probably not. But I could. So if I don't know something, that falls on me. And if I was charged with something and went, oh, it isn't there, I'd probably be like, okay, cool. Now, if I didn't like that law existed in the first place, I wouldn't go after the police. The police don't have anything to do with that. Go after the lawmakers, petition them to change it, get people together, sign paperwork and send it to whoever, right? You have the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That's under the First Amendment. You can do that if you want the law changed. However, the police are just enforcing the law as it has been written. So just something that bugs me is that people don't understand the law enforcement's role in these actual laws. Moving on.
Unless you've already educated yourself prior to that happening.
To me, that sounded more like destroying people rather than helping them. Here's a small glimpse of how Otto the Watchdog, that's Winston Knowles, has been treated by government officials in Rockwall County.
Alright, well that doesn't have anything to do with this, I don't think. So, moving on, I'm going to check the comments right quick, see if there are any questions before I just start discussing this in depth. If Kenny Klein wants me on his show, Pat, send me an invite. I'd probably be willing to do that, depending on the situation, or my schedule. Morally right versus, all right, morally right versus law. Who should win? Now, if you believe that the law is morally wrong, you should go and change the law. You should attempt to have that law changed. However, sometimes you're just not seeing a bigger picture, but sometimes you are. But once the law is broken, the police, they do have the ability to selectively enforce some laws, but not all of them. It's called, well, you'd think I'd know. Officer discretion, that's the one. Officer discretion. There are certain laws, not all of them, but a few. For example, traffic infractions, like a headlight being out. I have, or I would have had, officer discretion in actually writing a ticket, or I can just say, hey, look, get it fixed. Sorry, I'm reading the comments. Excellent. So, I'm going to break this down for you. This is the part where it gets scripted a little bit. Let me see. Maybe. We'll see. Alright, so the officer in the video, when the arrests are made, states that these people are committing criminal mischief, and that's very important because the people I've talked to in the comment section of this video seem to think that they were charged under graffiti statute or Penal Code 28.08 in Texas. Now, this is in Texas, so if you're looking for what statute it is, that would be the state that it falls under. Now, under 28.08, the charges, the arrest wouldn't have been valid because basically for graffiti to apply, it requires a person to use materials that permanently mark property or are designed to be difficult to remove. Obviously, chalk doesn't do that. And so a lot of people are thinking, well, it isn't permanent. How can they be charged with that? Well, because they're not being charged under graffiti. They're being charged under criminal mischief, which is Penal Code 28.03. And under 28.03, there is no requirement for the message to be difficult to remove, only that the message was marked on property that doesn't belong to the person doing the marking. Now, of course, this brings up the argument that public property belongs to the people, but in fact, that's not entirely true. The government's ownership of property does not automatically open that property to the public. And the Supreme Court made that ruling in United States Postal Service versus Council of Greenberg Civic Associations. They basically say, like, look, yeah, the government owns certain properties, but that doesn't mean that the public can go on those properties, use it for whatever they want. Properties where they can do that, that are open to the freedom of expression, are designated specifically as such. Otherwise, you can be limited. Checking the comments. Alright, anyway. The location that they were in, although they were outside and they were on a sidewalk, it would likely be considered a non-public forum, meaning that reasonable restrictions on the First Amendment can be made, if certain conditions are met, that is. Are there any questions about non-public versus traditional public forums? Because I know that's something that a lot of people aren't familiar with. It's not something that I expect most people to become or to be familiar with, because it's not a topic that comes up in conversation very much. Is anyone unsure about that? Public versus non-public forums. Give it a second, because obviously live stream delay and typing speeds. Alright, I'll give you a brief overview. No one's saying out, but public forums, traditional public forums, are places where the freedom of expression, they're designated for the freedom of expression. So a public park, for example, a sidewalk, places where you can have your protests, stand on your soapbox and say what you want to say. However, non-public forums are places that are open to the public, but not designated for that sort of thing. They serve a very specific purpose. For example, post office, the purpose is to send mail. Public library, the purpose is to read a book or study or do things quietly, right? So if you're doing something that is not in the interest of the purpose that is designed for, has been designated for, then it can be restricted to include First Amendment protected activities. And the idea is that, well, this is a public sidewalk. It's outside. So how could it be a non-public forum? We'll get to that. If we look at U.S. versus Coquinda in 1990, we find that the Supreme Court ruled on a similar situation where protesters were arrested on a sidewalk leading to a post office. And now, it is a post office, not a courtroom, where this is outside of the courthouse. But understand that in Coquinda, the post office is treated as a government entity, government property. So there are similarities, enough that this would likely apply. The Supreme Court stated, and I have it right here. Well, I had it highlighted, and now it's not. Let me highlight that for you. That's not going to find it. Yeah, it is. All right. The postal sidewalk was constructed solely to provide for the passage of individuals engaged in postal business. The sidewalk leading to the entry of the post office is not the traditional public forum sidewalk referred to in Perry. Now, Perry is basically it's a ruling about what a traditional public forum is, or includes information about the traditional public forum. We're not going to go into that. You can feel free to read that on your own. Perry, oh, here it is. What is it? Perry Education Association versus Perry Local Educators Association. If you want to read that case, that is what it is. But basically, it's saying, look, the sidewalk here isn't the public sidewalk designated for meandering around. This one's specifically designed for people to go in and out of this post office to engage in postal business. Similarly, this sidewalk that was being chalked, I don't know if you guys saw it, it was right outside those doors of that courthouse. So it's definitely a similar situation where that is a sidewalk designed for people to go in and out of that building specifically, not just meander around. Another quote that we find in Coquinda, or U.S. versus Coquinda, is regulation of speech activity where the government has not dedicated its property to First Amendment activity is examined only for reasonableness. And I'll explain that in a second. I have that here. Again, it was... There we go. Regulations of speech activity where the government has not dedicated its property to First Amendment activity examined only for reasonableness. So, there are certain ways that a statute is examined to determine, basically determine whether or not a statute... Sorry, I got distracted by the comments again, because I really want to answer all your questions. So basically, if a statute restricts the First Amendment, there are certain tests to determine whether or not that is okay. If it's in a traditional public forum, you'd have strict scrutiny tests saying, look, is it reasonably tailored to serve a significant government interest? Is it too broad? Is it too narrow? Is it content neutral? There's a whole bunch of things that it falls under. Now, because this probably wouldn't fall under, location probably wouldn't be a traditional public forum, it would be a non-public forum. It doesn't have to go through those tests. It just has to be, look, is it reasonable or not? We'll discuss that a little bit more. Now, Finbar, you're saying that it's a case where the Supreme Court upheld a federal regulation prohibiting solicitations on post office property. Yes. In that case, a group had set up, I think, a table outside of the post office on the post office sidewalk. The sidewalk specifically designated for post office use by not only employees, but people entering and exiting the post office to conduct business with the post office. They set up a table, they were handing out flyers and soliciting. So this would be, the statute said you can't solicit on post office property. They argued, well, it's actually part of a protest. We're trying to convey a message. So it's a First Amendment activity that is protected, and you can't enforce the statute on it. Sorry, this mouse getting dry. You can't enforce this statute on us. And the Supreme Court went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, well, actually they can because, non-public forums, and sorry about that, which is what we're getting into at the moment. And you're right, Finbar, about the government may enforce reasonable time, place, and manner regulations as long as the restrictions are content neutral. We will discuss that. That usually applies, and you can find that ruling in Ward versus Rock Against Racism, which is a case that I refer to quite a bit. But that is for a traditional public forum. So understand that First Amendment activities can be restricted on a traditional public forum, but they're very limited on how they can be restricted. There's traditional public forum. On a non-public forum, it's much less limited. There are a lot more restrictions can be made. Now, there are limitations, but we'll discuss that a little bit. Where was I? I'm going... Let me see. I was going to have another computer to do this with, but unfortunately, someone's borrowing it, so I'm going to get rid of that. Boom! Magic. I love it. It's almost fancy. Let me see. So ultimately, the arrest of the protesters in Coquinda was determined to be constitutional by the Supreme Court. And we've already discussed this, but I'm going to discuss it again. Similarly to that incident, the sidewalks in the Rockwall case that were drawn on with chalk were built to provide passage to people engaged in court-related activities between the sidewalk around the courthouse and the courthouse itself, meaning it's likely to be considered a non-public forum, and therefore speech can be restricted if it would be reasonable to do so. Are there any questions about... Perfect. Thank you, King. I know, I should get something to drink. Give me a second. We are about to get to a point where I'm going to snag myself a little bit of water. In this incident, would the arrest be reasonable? Well, that's the question. It would be up to the judge, most likely. And you might think, well, what about the jury? It's because they're only being charged up to $500. I think they're only getting a $100 fine each. And according to Baldwin versus New York, the Supreme Court rules that only serious offenses require a jury. What's a serious offense? Well, that would be something that can get you 6 months or more in prison, or has a weighty sum of penalty. So basically, it doesn't have to be 6 months in prison. It could be, well, $5,000 seems pretty significant, or $3,000 plus 2 years in prison as a maximum potential sentence, right? Or sorry, not 2 years, 2 months. Getting all confused. So it varies. It really is at the court's discretion to a point, but generally, if for $100 you're not getting a jury, so it's going to be up to the judge. If the judge thinks it's reasonable, now you can appeal this to a higher court if you think that the judge has, made the wrong ruling, but understand that can get a little pricey. Would they have arrested if they chalked on public street, not part of the court property? We're going to get to that. I'll discuss that very briefly. It depends. The statute would still apply. I don't know if they would have enforced it. We're going to get to that. I'm going to take a really quick break, get me some water. I'll be back in about a minute. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be back to read what you've written and answer questions. All that good stuff. Okay, I'm back. Let's see. What have I missed? All right. I've missed absolutely nothing. Fantastic. Let me get myself a little better situated here. Huh. Oh, you bring up an excellent point, Finbar, about children. So, I'm glad you brought that up because I probably would have forgotten to mention it. Yes, children are not normally arrested for chalking on public sidewalk. Well, Texas has a limitation on the age of culpability. Most places have that sort of thing. So, the age of culpability is basically the age at which you will be considered capable of understanding the law. Sort of. That's not a really great definition. Basically, let's say age culpability is, on my base, we consider it 13 years old. So if a 13-year-old kid or someone under 13 punched another kid, we wouldn't consider it assault because the kid doesn't understand that what they're doing is illegal. Now, if they murdered someone, there are going to be exceptions to that age of culpability. So, a child should probably understand that murder is illegal, but maybe not. Now, there are certain circumstances where the crime would be, the parents would be responsible. For example, shoplifting, right? If your kid steals, and they're under 13, again, 13 being on the base I enforce law at, the kid wouldn't get in trouble, but the parent likely would be. They'd be responsible for the legal fees. Probably wouldn't go on a criminal record, but it would become likely a civil issue. This falls under or outside of how far I would go with the case, I would just file the paperwork. I don't know the exact details. But age of culpability, very important. In Texas, the age is 15. So if you're under 15 and you're drawing on a sidewalk with chalk, you're not going to get criminal charges for it, or you're unlikely to. However, if you're over 15, you should be able to read, and you should be able to read law. And that's basically it. Now, you still have the legal defense if I didn't know as a juvenile. But after 15 in the state of Texas, again, that's where this took place. It's limited. It's very limited. Okay. Now, speaking of legal defenses, though, let's discuss what some of those might be. I have them written down because I want to make sure you guys get all that good information. Okay. So, do they have a legal defense? Maybe. They could try to argue that they were in a traditional public forum, but they were literally on the courtroom steps, so that seems a bit unlikely. It's possible, but if those courtroom steps weren't designated for the freedom of expression, it's probably going to be considered a non-public forum, especially with the ruling in Coquinda. That makes sense, King 9. That makes sense. I intend to. I intend to schedule something. It's just holiday season is a little rough, you know, because people are on vacation, and other people have to cover down for shifts, and I get involved in that. It's a thing. But more legal defenses. Let's see. They could try to prove that the statute was unconstitutional, since it would have prohibited their actions if they conducted them in a traditional public forum, like an actual public sidewalk. Now, Finbar, you brought that up, and that's a great thing to bring up. But the question is, where's the question? I'm sorry, I've written this down, so of course I had to find it again. Question is whether or not their free speech was actually restricted by not letting them draw on things. See, they can still speak their message, they can still write their message on their own signs, they just can't draw on someone else's property. So, at least not without acquiring permission first. So, does it really restrict their freedom of speech? Not really. It's unlikely that it would be considered a true restriction, because they can still easily convey their message, and restricting them from drawing it still allows other ways of conveying what they're trying to convey. In fact, speaking the message is actually easier when it comes to conveying the message. So, honestly, I don't think that would be considered a true restriction. They could argue that the arrests were made because of the words they wrote, which obviously contain anti-police sentiments. We saw that in the video after the police. In a non-public forum, specific viewpoints can't be repressed, but the content of speech can. So the arrest can't be made. The arrest can't be made because the viewpoint is anti-police, but the statute can be enforced because the messages had swears on them. Because look, viewpoint can't be repressed, content can. So it's likely that these swear words would be considered unacceptable while on the non-public forum. And so all the police have to do is say, no, we don't care about the anti-police sentiment, you know, do that all you want, but the swear words were an issue. We got complaints from people walking by, you know, we came in to see what's up, we clearly saw that you were violating Penal Code 28.03, and we enforced it. And even if it was determined that the statute was unconstitutional, or enforced unconstitutionally, the police would likely still have that qualified immunity, because they enforce the statute as written, and they're not expected to be the legal experts that you have in the prosecutor's office, or, you know, the various attorneys that would have gotten involved. The officers, their training mostly hinges on the actual enforcement of the law as opposed to the interpretation. Now, there is training, and as someone who's gone through training, there is training on interpretation. And keep in mind, not all training is the same. Some departments do it more. Some, I'm sure, do it less. So I can't speak for every department. I can tell you, though, that I received some training. And as an investigator, I received a lot more training, because I worked very much hand in hand with the prosecuting office of my military base. That'd be Southside and JAG. And they wanted me to be able to keep up. So, they wanted all of us to keep up. It wasn't me specifically. I knew what I was doing for the most part. So yes, would they have been arrested if they carried signs rather than chalking? Well, they could have been asked to leave, I'm sure, off of the courthouse property. However, if they were on a truly public sidewalk, then, as in when I say true public sidewalk, I mean a traditional non-public forum. If they had been on a traditional non-public forum, like the public sidewalk that was surrounding the courthouse, as opposed to the one leading to the courthouse, as long as they're not obstructing pedestrian traffic or forcing people to take flyers or anything like that, or harassing people physically or emotionally, depending, then they probably would have been fine. However, while they're on the property of the courthouse, they could probably have been asked to leave, and if they hadn't left, it's possible they could have been arrested for trespassing. It depends on Texas statutes. It depends on the rulings in Texas courts or the federal circuit courts or even the Supreme Court. And that would be something I would have to look into more in depth to give you a solid answer. Best I can give you right now is I wouldn't be surprised if they could ask them to leave. But if they were on the public sidewalk outside of the courthouse, no, they should have been able to do it. Profanity should not be the basis of an arrest. Yes, generally cannot criminalize the display of profane words in public places. They generally cannot. That doesn't mean there is no exception to that. That just means that the exceptions are very limited. So, you are correct. There was a case where someone went to a court hearing with the F word on their jacket. I don't know if it's... I feel like it's that case, Cohen. But... Sorry, I'm just reading it. And that was determined to be okay, because there was no statute prohibiting it. They got in trouble for it, and they said, look, why wouldn't I be able to do this? In Texas, there is a specific statute prohibiting the writing of words on something. So, because the arrest wasn't made like, oh, well, it says the F word, it was because, well, they violated the statute. That's why this arrest was made. People complained to us about the statute because of the content of the message. We didn't do it just based on the anti-police sentiments. And, F the draft. That's right. That's what it was. I don't remember the exact details. I have read that case. It's been a while. So, it's iffy whether or not the content, the use of swears could be ruled on. But based on the totality of all of it, the fact that a statute exists saying you can't draw on something, and the fact that because it is a non-public forum, content restrictions can be made, they can make that argument. However, it wouldn't be an incredibly strong argument. It wouldn't be wrong to make that argument, and it might work out in their favor. But it's definitely a tricky situation. I wouldn't say it's hard to find cops and politicians with professional skills. The thing with police, a lot of people complain that police are really aggressive. That there is a reason for that. Is usually you guys, if you've ever interacted with police, you're not doing anything too crazy. It's, oh, I didn't slow down enough, or I didn't stop fully at the stop sign, and now they pulled me over. Why are they being so mean to me? Well, an officer, their entire day is them interacting with the public and the public hating on them. All they want to do is finish their traffic stop and get on with it. And when people are arguing with them every single day, it can grind on you. And unfortunately, there are officers that don't take the time to sort of de-stress, and it can get to them, and it can make them pretty rude people. And that's not great. I don't support that. I don't agree with that. I tried very hard not to be that guy. And for the most part, I feel that I was successful. But there are times where a situation can be incredibly dangerous for a police officer. And you might not think it's dangerous, but the police officer there will be certain signs, there will be certain things that a police officer will be like, that is indicative of a dangerous thing I'm about to walk into. Regardless of whether or not it actually is, a police officer can defend themselves. So there are times that they'll be very aggressive, very gruff, very demanding right away. But that's because they expect something to happen, and they're trying to mitigate the possible danger, I guess. I know it's confusing. That's a long conversation. Common sense. So common sense, that depends on the situation and depends on who you're talking to. That would be a different conversation for a different day, basically. Why the auditors so insistent on calling police claiming officers are killers, yet they put themselves in harm's way every time they act out. Okay, so let me briefly discuss this idea that police are killers. Yes, police kill people. They kill on average about 1,000 people a year, as opposed to the 33,000 people that are killed by citizens. Now, statistically, a police officer is more likely to kill than a citizen is. There are 370 million citizens in the United States, approximately, maybe 360 million, and 33,000. So the percentage of people actually killing is much lower than the percentage of police officers actually killing. But police officers find themselves in much more dangerous situations than the average citizen. So percentage-wise, statistically, that's a whole conversation. Now, if you're going to hate the police because they kill, the issue with that is, do you also hate doctors? Do you also hate nurses? Well, nurses don't intentionally kill people. Doctors don't intentionally kill people. That's not true. They're actually, if anyone wants it, I can link you at some point, probably not now, a list of serial killers who are doctors who intentionally killed babies, doctors who intentionally killed patients. Dr. Death is a common person who is named, and that was assisted suicide, still technically murder. But yes, still technically murder, and just like the police, still technically, killing people. However, circumstance dependent, are they allowed to do that? The doctors and nurses kill between 200 and 400,000 people a year, either intentionally or through preventable negligence. Right? It's either negligent homicide or actual murder. That's a lot. Compared to the 1,000 that police kill, doctors and nurses are killing 200 to 400,000. I'm just saying. I'm not saying I respect the heck out of doctors and nurses and the medical professionals in that whole field. But if you're going to protest based only on the amount of killing, well, you'd be wrong not to also protest doctors, right? I know you wouldn't think that, right? It's a crazy number. It's just, and I doubted that, but there are multiple studies that show that. The problem is that records of those numbers aren't super easy to get because like HIPAA rules and laws and privacy acts and the whole thing. So that's why there's such a difference. It's a difference of 200,000. It's either 200,000 to 400,000, and it goes as high as I think 440, 450,000 on some estimates. But the lowest estimate is around 200,000. That's significant. That's 200 times more than police kill a year. That's each year in America, I think. I'm almost certain. That's one of the leading causes of death in America is doctor negligence. And keep in mind, being a doctor is super, super hard. It takes an incredible amount of school. It's not an easy job. But these instances that are mentioned are either actual murder or it's something that could have been prevented. Mistakes happen, I understand that. But I'm just saying, if that's the basis that you don't like, if that's the reason why you don't like police, you're not looking at enough stuff. And if you, it's a whole thing. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. I was a police officer. But it's... charged was the only way he was in court. I'm missing out on some of the conversation. Oh yeah, you did tell me about working in jail, King 9. Yeah, there are a lot of people that work. I don't agree with the prison system. I'm going to tell you that right now. Before we keep going to this video, because I'm very easily distracted, I don't agree with the way the prison system is right now. I don't believe in a for-profit prison system. However, I haven't looked into it enough to really form a valid opinion that I can just spout at you right now. I'd like to do the research, and I'd like to really have a solid understanding of the issues and what the current system is. I'm not, and I've never really been involved in the prison system. I worked on the streets. I worked in an office. That's it. I've been in a prison very few times. I have been in prison as a visitor or for work. I've never been in prison right. So, in the United States, police fatally shoot approximately 3 people a day. Yes, about 1,000 a year. Keep in mind, most of those are legally justified. If you come at a police officer with a gun, they're probably going to shoot you. You come at them with a knife, they're probably going to shoot you. If you disobey their orders and you start reaching in your pocket and pulling something out and it looks like a gun, they're probably going to shoot you, right? And if you look into those cases where that happens, and I'll get to the unjustified ones in just a second. If you look into those cases, and this is, again, this is a long topic for a different video, but I'll discuss it very briefly. If you look into those situations, the courts often rule, look, police have the right to defend themselves just like any other citizen. And any other citizen who saw someone in a situation that is likely to become violent or likely to involve people that will defend themselves from an arrest, so gang activity, that sort of thing, gang members, and they're pulling something out in a place where a gun is usually held, and when they pull it out, it appears to be a gun-like object. Sometimes it's a phone, right? You can't tell that when it's moving like this. That is not something you can tell. Let me get my phone. That looks like a gun. From right there, boom, that's a gun. It's actually a phone, but it looks like a gun. It's being pulled out like it's a gun. You can't tell. I'm just saying. Police officers have a second, or they die. That's why the quick decisions are made. And it's super unfortunate, but if all you did was, they tell me to raise my hands, I'm raising my hands. Tell me to get on my knees, I'm getting on my knees. Put my hands behind my back, I'm doing it. And it's hard in some situations, I understand it, to remain calm. And at that point, the police have to be able to calm people down. And I've drawn my gun on someone once. All right, they had run through the barrier of the military installation, and I pulled my gun and we approached the vehicle. It was me and a buddy of mine. He had his rifle, I had my pistol, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, which is, yay. And we got him out of the car, and we gave him instructions, and he followed all of them. I didn't at any point want to shoot him. I didn't have my finger on the trigger, but I was, the adrenaline. And he was terrified too. He had no idea what was going on. It turns out he was half asleep, and he had just taken the wrong exit and didn't realize what was happening. And we figured it all out. But as I'm handcuffing him, he's yelling. He's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't do anything wrong." And I'm like, "I know, dude. That's why we're not hurting you right now. We're trying to be real calm." And I'm like telling my buddy, like, "All right, just everyone calm. Like, just let's take this down a notch, because everything it happens so fast. And if you've never been through this type of situation, it's really hard to understand it. But things escalate so quickly. And if he had reached for anything, I can't say I wouldn't have pulled the trigger. He didn't have a gun on him. But if he had failed to follow the instructions and made poor choices in his movement, I can't say for sure that he would not be dead right now. He survived. We shook hands afterwards. Everyone understood what happened. He wasn't charged. It was a mess. A lot of other police officers ending up showing up, and we had a good long sit down with him and explained, like, I understand, dude, but holy Jesus, it's well, no, it's good. I mean, not calling a police officer names, and you have the right to call them names. Usually, soldiers don't. I've pulled someone over for yelling insults out a window to me, because that's in violation of Article 134, because soldiers are subject to a different set of rules. Same rules as well. They're subject to two different sets of laws. There's a lot of rules you follow, but you sign a contract saying, "Yep, I agree to it." So, I'm not. It's when you reasonably believe that you are about to be in a life or death situation, thinking can go out the window. And I do want to briefly touch on that with UPS, the UPS driver that got shot in the. Oh, that was a bad situation. I don't agree with what the police officers did. I understand it, though. See, the criminals had tried to rob a jewelry store at gunpoint. Gunfire was exchanged, so we already know that these criminals are willing to take a human life, which basically, if you're fleeing from the cops, they can shoot you in the back at that point, right? The police at that point have the legal justification to shoot you. Once you start shooting at people, if you don't immediately surrender, the police absolutely can shoot you. Circumstance dependent. There are. It's complicated though. I'm just gonna say, look, if you shoot at someone, you better not have a gun in your hands or do anything stupid, because police can absolutely open fire and say, look, he was a clear danger to the public, or she was a clear danger to the public. Therefore, we're legally justified, and they'll probably get away with it, because that's how it works. Civilians have. I don't know how it works for civilians, but police have that ability. As far as they then kidnapped a dude, they hijacked his vehicle. Police were following. I don't know when they started shooting at police or when police started shooting at them. I know they got trapped in traffic. Police surrounded them. Bad place to do that. Real bad place to do that. Someone opened fire. Some reports think that it was the criminals. Some reports think it's the police. It's still under investigation, which is why I'm not giving out a huge amount of information about this or picking a side, really. But when police are fired on, their training is to fire back for the most part. And when you're in that sort of dangerous situation, your brain's not really thinking very well. It's just reverting to whatever you've been trained to do. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be bad for them to have more training on that sort of circumstance, but that's a very specific circumstance to have training for, and it's just an incredibly bad situation. And if they hadn't done what they did, and the hostage had died, well, then the question would be, why didn't the police act? And the police would still be in trouble. And if the people had gotten away, the question would have been, why did the police let them get away? And it's a no-win situation. Unfortunately, things happened the way they did. I don't support the fact that it happened. We don't know who actually killed the bystander or the hostage. It could have been the criminals. It could have been the police. That's also under investigation. So when we talk about police killings and how many they've killed, there are actually very few a year that are unjustified. And we look at one that was recently brought up to me was the woman that shot the guy in her own home. And I see you, King 9, talking about the time you almost did something similar. Not quite the same. I'll discuss that. She went into what she thought was her home. She saw a guy there and she killed him. She's now serving 10 years in prison. She got what she deserved. Okay, I'm not saying that I don't support what she does as a police officer, but she killed a dude off duty. She got prison time. Now, on duty or off duty, I don't think it really matters. Her actions could not be legally justified, and so she got punished. So when you say, well, police kill people, yes, and usually the ones that are unjustified, they get in trouble for it. Zimmerman, well, he wasn't a police officer, but that's the interesting thing that comes up. The guy in the hotel that's crawling, that's a weird one. But technically, a jury found them innocent. A jury, right? It wasn't the legal system, it wasn't the judge, it wasn't the government. A jury found them innocent. If you guys want to look a good channel for reviewing, it is a very pro-police channel, but hear me out. Donut Operator breaks down a lot of these police shootings and does a pretty good job of it. I would recommend checking him out. Again, very pro-police. He was a police officer. He worked SWAT for a little bit, but he, for the most part, knows what he's talking about. He was part of the inspiration for this channel. Because I saw what he was doing, and I thought, wow, he's doing some great explanation, but it's designed for people who are already pro-law enforcement, whereas I wanted to sort of target groups that weren't pro-law enforcement that might still want to learn about things, right? I'm not saying I'm not pro-law enforcement. I'm just trying to reach out to a different group to help you guys, to keep you out of trouble. Now, King 9, you're saying that you almost killed... a deputy? I think he was an armed thief? Yeah. That's not an uncommon thing either, is the no-knock warrants. People will get warrants to arrest someone in their home, and usually you'd have to knock on the door and say, we're the police. But if the situation, if they're dangerous enough that you think that they might open fire on you, or there might be issues with you announcing your presence, then you get a no-knock warrant where you can say, like, we're the police. Or, you don't say we're police, you just enter and go. But if you don't announce your presence upon entering, then your legal defense for shooting them is, well, I had no idea who they were. Oh, just a bunch of dark-clothed men entering my house very forcefully. And that defense is held up. Not always, but it has held up. Yeah. Like I said, very pro-police channel, Donut Operator. All right, let's finish this video. So, as far as legal defenses, because that's where we got distracted. King 9, save that story. We'll discuss that story when we do a live stream together, when I invite you into that. So, their last legal defense that I've come up with, and I'm sure there are more, but legal defense is that these people claim that the statute is invalid due to the desuetude doctrine, which means that the statute is inapplicable due to a long period in which it went unenforced, saying, like, look, who else is being arrested for drawing with chalk? And basically, that has to be established to counter that is say, no, we've arrested people for 28.03 before. They don't necessarily have to say we've arrested people for chalk just for 28.03. So there are legal defenses. However, there are counters to each of those legal defenses as far as the Rockwall incident. So there's a whole thing. My God, I've been streaming for forever. If anyone is watching this after this has been posted, well done you. What are you doing? Why are you still here? For the rest of you who are interacting with me, I don't know. That basically breaks down the Rockwall incident as far as the arrests. I think they were each charged $100. And they can fight it, but the fight's probably going to be more expensive than the charge. I'm not saying that that means that they shouldn't. If they get a public defender, probably, I don't know how much that ends up costing in court fees. Good. Good to have you still here, Otto. But yeah, I think the government's going to win this one for the Rockwall chalk stuff, just because the statute does exist. They were on a non-public forum. Unfortunately, there are people who think that their First Amendment rights are a lot stronger than they are, which is why you really need to look into what the limitations are. Because there are limitations. There are limitations on your First Amendment rights, despite what you may want, of course. Unfortunate, but true. Which is why I'm trying to help you guys out and understand what some of those limitations are. What are your questions? If anyone has any. I've been so distracted by so many of you. Which is great. I love answering questions. But, distracts me from the original intent of the video. Give it a second because there's a delay. You all might be typing. All few of you. Merv didn't show up, so that saves us some time. Kind of a shame. Yeah, I'm very easily distracted. If you ask me questions, because look, all I want is to help you guys understand things. And understand that my information isn't going to be as good as a lawyer necessarily. It doesn't mean it's not valid. I'm telling you this from the point of view of a police officer, one that has had additional training, who has done a lot of research in their free time, right? Most police officers aren't going to know as much as I do about these specific topics I discuss. Now, there are police officers out there that know more about various things than yours truly. However, when it comes to this, I'm doing pretty all right as far as my my national ranking, I'm sure, in the amount of work I put into this. Oh, I'm sure he has someone in here, or he's in here himself, gathering information for him to complain. But if he wants to spend his time complaining about me, that's on him. I go for it. I mean, I spend enough of my time, discussing various people. I can't fault him for that. Understand that I'm telling you this as how it will probably be enforced. I'm not telling you that you'll probably win or lose a court case. However, I'm just giving you a heads up, like, look, you're probably going to get arrested, or you probably won't get arrested for this. And an arrest is inconvenient. It doesn't mean a conviction. It doesn't mean that you're going to have a criminal record. It doesn't mean you're going to have to pay a fine or serve jail time. It just means you're probably going to have to fight it, in a courtroom. It doesn't mean you're guilty of anything. So for those of you who think, oh, he's arrested, obviously, he's guilty. No, we wait to the conviction. Oh, people have liked my video. All right. We started this video with 3 dislikes, by the way, before we even started. When I set this up, I got the time wrong, like, twice. I accidentally set it for... Well, I set it for the 20th yesterday, but then I was busy all day. I forgot I had scheduled other things. And I set it for today at like 3 in the morning by accident. I meant to do it at night. And then I got it right eventually. But yeah, maybe I made someone angry about that. But there are people, I make enough people mad. Because I go out to the videos that I discuss, and I go through the comment section. There's some crazies out there. And I try to help them out And I have a lot of fun doing it. If you go through my comment section, you'll notice I reply to most stuff. And I really shouldn't, but I enjoy it quite a bit. Just like, why do you think this way? I'm presenting actual facts. What's going on, right? Here's an actual dictionary definition. Why don't you understand what majority means? I'm arguing with the guy right now about, I don't know, he's like, well, police are wrong. Thin blue line flag, obviously this is the thin blue line flag. But some people are like, you have a blue line. It counts. Okay, cool. Calm down. He's arguing like, look, thin blue line flag is bad. I'm like, or you might think that, but it's not desecration, which is what I made a video on, saying that it isn't desecration legally. And he's like, well, yes it is. Let's let the public vote on it. I'm like, well, the public probably would vote that it isn't desecration because the majority of Americans, according to polls, actually support the police. Now, it's not a huge majority. Well, actually, it's like 85% support the police. 54% strongly support the police. Now, there's a difference between support and strong support. So, it's likely that the majority would support the thin blue line flag. And understand that, yes, the thin blue line flag is being used by some white supremacist movements, and that's not the intent. The intent is to say, look, here's the American flag. It's not technically the American flag. It doesn't meet the requirements to be an American flag. It's a representation of the American flag. And the thin blue line is basically saying, look, this represents police officers. And this line, and this goes back like way back when it started with a thin red line in like the British. It's basically saying, look, this is the line that separates chaos from order, right? We are the group that holds back the criminals to allow society to thrive. That's the basic intent of it. People have taken it and they've used it for other purposes. I don't support that. The police don't support that. That's not the intent. The original creator doesn't support that, right? But people have been doing it. Same with like the OK sign. This is a little game. Like if you do that below the hip, then it's a little game. But someone on the internet decided to see if they could make that look like a white supremacist, or make people think that was a white supremacist symbol, just to make people panic. And it worked, and they did. And now news stations are like, oh, Army-Navy game, a Navy personnel was doing this, they're a white supremacist. Like, no, they're being stupid. It's part of that little game. And it's blown way out of proportion. Same with the thin blue line flag. It technically isn't desecration. I wouldn't consider it a battle flag when used by the police. However, there are movements that use it to counter Black Lives Matter. And so it's like, well, you have your Black Lives Matter flag, we have a thin blue line flag, so we support the police. But they use it in a way that isn't great. It isn't, I don't agree with. And so in those cases, yes, it could be considered a battle flag. But if you see it on like a police cruiser, it's just saying, I'm the police, I support myself, right? Because of course they do. They're the police. Of course they support themselves. It's a whole thing. The comment section of that video, if you go through that, there's a whole sort of thing. One defense might be that the arrest is arbitrary and not content neutral. Would street talk artist... that's another argument, Finbar. Would a street chalk artist be arrested? Street art chalk... words are hard. Street chalk... I'm having a stroke, obviously. Street chalk artists have been arrested for this, actually, throughout the country. I think there was one in California that was a big deal. Maybe. I don't know. It happened. It has happened, not just in Texas. Basically, if you're going to do it, you got to get permission first. So if you have an artist that asks for permission, great. Then they can totally do it. But if you don't, you might be subject to the appropriate state or county or city laws. Give me history lessons. I love history lessons. I love history. I'm a big... Oh, man. If you guys only knew how much World War II history tidbits are in here. I love researching that stuff. Someone's going to say it. It's not because I'm a Nazi. Calm down. No. It's just as a soldier, it's incredibly fascinating to just the scale of it. Let me see. What was I saying? That I don't know if I would agree that World War II is a lie. There are things that have been said to me that aspects of World War II are just propaganda. I'm sure that some of those are true. However, there are things I disagree with, but that is a conversation for a different day. Any other questions, comments before I get out of here? Because we've been doing this for like an hour and a half. Good God. 94 minutes so far. 95. Ah, I see. Yeah, this is an expensive chalk job. That's why you gotta know what you're doing. If you're gonna engage in a protest, and eventually I'm gonna get to protests on this channel, because this channel was never designed to be just about auditors. If you protest, you gotta know the rules about protesting, because there are rules. I'll still go back to the various things that pop up. So I'm moving out of auditors. I'm still making videos on auditors, but I'm sliding into sovereign citizens. And some of you think, maybe not the people here, but people that have commented, think that I believe auditors and sovereign citizens are the same people. That's not true. With the exception of, what was the video? Gordy's Safe Space, I think it was. I did a video on a guy who was arrested in a post office. He is actually both a sovereign citizen and an auditor. But for the most part, that is not the case. I don't think that just because you're an auditor, you're a sovereign citizen, or the other way around. That some people do, but I've done a lot of research into what sovereign citizens are. I have a video on it. Not the case. So I'm transitioning into that. And unfortunately, obviously, holiday season makes it difficult. And then from there, I'm going to go into police use of force, what is appropriate, what is not. I'm going to be showing both videos of good use of force, where it looks bad, and bad use of force, where, of course, it also looks bad, and saying, look, this is why they're allowed to do this, or, look, this is definitely wrong. From there, I'm going to be going... Why am I getting it backwards? Nope. After sovereign citizens, it is protesting. Then from there, it's use of force. Then from there, I'm hoping to get to actual police departments and say, hey, let's test these items using me as a guinea pig, so that we know how effective they are and whether or not I believe that they would be appropriate, or how much pain they would cause, what pain compliance even is, the whole thing. I've been exposed to OC spray. You guys have the video of me eating it on Thanksgiving dinner. I'm just doing a little fun video for you guys because someone asked me to make a Thanksgiving video after I did the Halloween one. I didn't have a good Thanksgiving story, so I decided to OC spray a turkey dinner. It was awful. It's so bad. But I've been sprayed in the face a couple times for training. I've been tased. I've been bitten by a dog through a bite suit. I've been shot with chalk rounds. I've never been shot by a rubber bullet, but I might change that. So we'll see if we can get some stuff tested on me, where we come up with some situations to see how effective it would be, and how effective it would stop me from completing a task. But that's the plan. That's where we're going to transition to various things, and I'll still go back to previous topics to discuss them, but we'll see. Yeah, so basically someone else is going to be inflicting it on me, and I have a lot of people I used to work with that have volunteered for that. Like, I want to be the one to shoot you with a beanbag round. I bet you do. Thanks. But it's gonna be great. Yeah, I would recommend not getting shot. But I'll tell you what, if you get a choice between OC spray and a taser, take the taser. If anyone ever says they're gonna hit you with OC spray, I would recommend becoming immediately compliant. It sucks. It always sucks. It never... Oh, boy. Oh, boy, it's bad. Taser, also not fun, but it's only not fun for 6 seconds. They did tase me for 10 seconds, though. They got me for 10. They're like, look, if you hold down the trigger, it will just keep going. Normally, the timer runs out at 5 or 6 seconds. Like, it's a timed thing. But you can keep holding it down. And they used me as a guinea pig for that. Thanks a lot, guys. It wasn't fun. I'll discuss that, I'm sure, in the future. As far as... yeah, if they ever say I'm about to release the dog on you, even with a bite suit, the dog hurts. It'll just grab you and shake you, and then shake you, and shake it some more. It's not fun. I wouldn't recommend. Look, if you're like, I don't want to comply with the police, but they're about to release a dog on me, I recommend becoming compliant. Oh, the horse and cattle. I've heard those are bad. The horse fences and the cattle fences. I'm probably gonna stay away from them. But yeah, it's gonna be a good time. Anyway, police dogs don't scare you at all. Well, I'm not scared of the dog until it's trying to bite me. At that point, I'm very unhappy with it. I don't want to be attacked by a dog again. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. Part of the problem was I had a torn tendon in my arm, and of course it grabbed that exact tendon, and so maybe that was why it was more painful than expected, but oof, it was not fun. No. Still love dogs, though. Definitely, dogs are great. Don't want to get bit by one. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it here. We've been going for 101 minutes, which is the appropriate time to start talking about dogs. Obviously, that's a Dalmatians joke. But, yeah, thank you guys so much for being part of this. I had a lot of fun. We're going to do this again sometime. Let me know if you want any changes to my special cool thing. I'm going to look into getting a capture card because obviously the quality of my video of the actual camera isn't great because it's just direct from the camera to my computer. So it isn't actually transferring all that data very effectively, I guess. I'm not really sure how it works. But we'll figure it out. This is only my second live stream, so I have plenty of time to get good at this. But I had a lot of fun talking to you guys about this. And thank you guys so much. Oh, yeah, of course. Until the next time, be good, stay safe. Now I gotta figure out how to stop the stream. Alright, I think I got it figured out. Oh yeah, extra. You were yeah, sorry, my times kept changing. That is a good choice. Yeah, so that's a little bit on me because I accidentally put in the wrong time. But yeah, if you have any questions about it, please leave a comment here, and I'll check on it. But Merb is my daddy. Merb wishes he was my daddy. Maybe, I don't know. I don't really know what that's supposed to mean. So anyway, I'm just gonna keep talking till I figure out how to stop this thing. I know how to stop it. I was trying to do it more fun. I don't still have my 9mm. No. You'd think I would, but I'm not gonna tell you what I got. All right. Anyway, Had a good time. Thank you guys so much for showing up. We'll do this again more later. For real this time. Be good. Stay safe.